Hello, everybody. It's the Alco Diesel guy with my 2022 trip to the Albany train extravaganza, held in the Egg, as it's called, at the Empire State Plaza. I was mainly focused on N scale this year because I seem to have gotten back into that hardcore, so we'll be looking at a lot more of that. Although I did look at some of the HO stuff they had as well. Let's go take a look at this table here. This one was pretty interesting near the top of the whole Egg building there. It had a lot of freight cars, mainly Atlas freight cars, which unfortunately I have not had good luck with in terms of getting around turns and backing into sidings, etc. So those didn't interest me, although they did have one interesting detail on the left there, which will come back into view in a little bit. They had a 50th anniversary Kato Amtrak P42. Unfortunately, I already had this model. In fact, I wound up getting a second one. You'll see a story on that explaining why the insanity occurred there. While I would end up buying a few things from this table, nothing you actually see here. That actually other stuff that they had selling that I did grab, but nothing here. They also had some vintage passenger cars, some newer passenger cars at this table. Nothing really spoke to me, I have to say, on that. Then I made my way to another one of the tables and found a lot more N scale stuff. Again, I was tempted by a lot of things, but I just couldn't find anything that I really wanted to buy here. There were a lot of things in retrospect I'm starting to wish I had bought because, again, I was kind of exhausted. I came directly from work, having been on the night shift and being up all night, so my judgment wasn't probably the greatest it should have been, which is why I was hesitant to pull the trigger a lot of times. But again, as you can see here, they had a really good selection on this other table. They had plenty of the freight cars. They had brand new passenger sets there, all kinds of other stuff on here. Prices were pretty darn good here too, which is why I'm kind of lamenting not buying more from this table. I know they had a few GP7s. I think we're looking at them right now. They were going for 64 bucks a piece, brand new, non-DCC equipped, but something I could have worked with. But I don't know. I just couldn't get myself interested. I was looking for Alcos. I had my heart set on Alcos, and well, that is the name of my channel, so I guess that makes sense. But really couldn't find anything that really spoke to me, to be honest. They had some Dash 8s, which I was tempted to grab, but I have several Dash 8s with the smaller cab. I was looking for the BW series with the wide cab. The only one they had was the C series, and I think those were the newer ES series locomotives that were more modern. I wanted Dash 8s. They did have this nice little building here, which looked like part of a roundhouse. Unfortunately, it wasn't apparently a roundhouse, and it wouldn't work for me, so I decided not to buy it anyway. There are a lot of other houses here, which now looking at now, I really wish I had gone back and just bought these things, but I completely forgot. And now that I'm watching it, I remembered that I wanted to note to myself to come back here, and unfortunately, I didn't make it back to the stable. They had some, as you can see, they also had some lifelike N scale stuff here as well. Again, a massive selection of locomotives. They had some Alcos, but none of them would be the easy to convert ones, which are what held me back buying some of these units. Because the N scale, you got to remember how difficult it is to do a custom conversion on one of these engines. You really want something you can just slip a decoder in. These, if not, it really takes a lot of agony to modify these engines in that tight of space. You see me looking right there at a couple of these GP7 series engines. They were really inexpensive. I almost grabbed those. I just couldn't get myself interested enough. I'm really not into Jeeps per se. I'm really more into Alcos. The Alcos they had, again, were the type that would be difficult to modify. So, yeah, it just wasn't going to work for me. Moving on, I made my way to one of the booths set up in the corner, which in this particular building's unusual design gives a lot of extra space. This one had a lot of weird things such as model cars, as well as O scale, as well as HO, and some N scale kind of buried in with it, as well as HO. It was kind of all over the place. There was also a booth I should mention in this train show that actually sold Hess trucks, which I found very interesting. But yeah, here we go. As you see, there's Easy Track set up there. There's some other items stashed on the floor next to it. Here's a bit of an overview of what it looked like from the higher levels. Again, this is an egg-shaped room. As we look here, here are some other models again that were being sold as we take a look right there. This other gentleman here, I went into buying some items from him. I'll get into those later on with my whole video. I had a good selection of N scale stuff. Was able to get a good deal on some of the stuff I got from this gentleman. Got his card, but I appear to have lost it. I cannot find it for the life of me. Hopefully, I just got misplaced someplace, but I just don't see it anywhere. I'm just gonna have to dig around and see if I can find it. No, he operates out of Saratoga, New York. And here's yet another one of these stands. This one had a lot of Atherin Blue Box stuff. Didn't really look too much at it, as I wasn't really interested in that at this point. I was more here for N scale. And there was another booth going across there, or a table, I should say, going across there that had a lot of new stock Atherins, new stock Intermountain stuff. One thing I wish I would have done now in retrospect, I didn't even think of it until just now, was to look for some U18Bs, which are almost impossible to find now from Intermountain. But I doubt they would have had them there, to be honest. Who knows, maybe I'll be able to figure out whether they were actually there or not with this video footage. And then I made my way around again. There was another booth over here, or I should say table again. I keep saying that. Don't ask me why that had just a ton of books, railroad books, etc. They also had a huge selection of DVDs further down. You'll see that in a second. Some new, some used, all over the place. Kind of. They also had VHS tapes as well for rail fan tapes, which is interesting. Then this side had O scale stuff, very unique things on hand. And here again are more of the books on that side as we go, and you'll see the DVDs coming up there on the right. As I took a closer look at this point, I would wind up buying one DVD, which I forgot to mention in my haul video, which technically doesn't count because it's not a model railroad accessory. Then I ran into this table, which kind of emphasizes the fact that I did not make it on time to the train show. We got held up by a few things, and as we can see here, well, the end result was a pretty much naked table, which I'm told had a lot of really cool things in it that we missed out on. My father and I should say. But in any case, I did have some accessories that I did take a look at, and I think I wound up buying a few parts off this gentleman, mainly some tracks, which is something else I forgot to note in my haul video. Nothing big though, mainly just a few bumpers and some short extension tracks and rerailers. That's what I needed to grab. Then I made my way down along this part of the train show. Again, more O scale on this, or ground on the lower level now. There was plenty of O scale down there, so I didn't spend too much time. There was this table too, which had a mixture of Atlas Cato, Rapido, including the Alco PAs, which, as many of you know, I had that review on the engine and wasn't too impressed with it. If you're, in case anyone's wondering why I would look so closely at this, since I had one, well, I already returned that one, which is what happened. I just didn't like it at all. Then I made my way to this table along that same level in the corner again, and it actually had this vintage Bachmann set here, which I was very impressed to find. It's an actual original auto train set before Amtrak took it back over. So they wanted 99 bucks for it. Wasn't going to quite grab it, although I was very tempted. They had a bunch of other vintage HO scale stuff there. Wasn't really going crazy about that though, because I was here mainly for N scale. Then there were one or two more booths like this one over here selling t-shirts, custom made railfan t-shirts. And there was a little diorama here with an O scale, pardon me, train layout. Here's a shot of one of the tables in the back corner of the egg building, which had a lot of O gauge stuff. Didn't spend much time here because, again, I don't have O gauge currently. Did at one point, but not now. This guy also had some N scale stuff, which caused me to take interest. Unfortunately, none of it was young enough for me to work with and put a decoder in, and/or was worth putting a decoder in, and/or was too expensive for the price. Well, there's still some interesting pieces that did catch my eye, including some of these old vintage Katos right here, and that one big E unit on the top there. And here we have shots of the table from the new railroad operation that took over what apparently was the Saratoga and North Creek, and before that was the Upper Hudson River Railroad. They were selling sweatshirts.
What a shirt, wouldn't you?
Here's a quick shot of the Amherst Railway Society and their model of a RDC they had on hand, as well as their pamphlets. Next, I made my way to the display section of the whole show, which was in the lowest level of the egg building right there. The first, I stopped at one of the N-scale layout displays right over here. This had to be one of my favorite displays of the whole show because of the way it was laid out. I liked the scenery they had. I also liked the sort of yard they were operating there. So it wasn't just because it was N-scale, though I have to admit I was very attracted to the way the models looked on this layout. It was really very well done, especially for a modular layout setup. And I think most of this actually ran, if I remember correctly, on Kato Unitracks. And here's a shot of an Operation North Pole Kato train set they had running around the layout. I have one of these sets myself, and I'm hoping to do a review of this before Christmas at some point here. I'm trying very hard to get to that. I've been kind of busy lately. So look out for that video. Should be on the channel soon, hopefully.
Even they are running it like that.
And here are some more shots of that layout operating. It was very interesting to look at.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah. He's just getting it though. He took it less as a That's a huge step. Big blow turbine. Yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool. Excellent. Really drag it over here.
Yeah, right across the street. No, they were trash. Yeah, different trash. I do see that one.
What?
Your big blow is better. It has 3. Mine only has 2.
That's not what he said. He said it's better.
What did I say? It's not what I said.
The guy from Trayville wants you to go up there. Oh, come up there and say hi. I don't want to. I'll never come back. I just, since Steve scooted in and purchased all the ZCL stuff in the forest, I had to go buy some track. So I just started making
Switch. But your other trains didn't come up.
Put it on the side.
I then made my way over to what I believe was the Capital Region Model Railroad Club's HO scale layout. See operating right here.
I'll get you.
I was happy to, in the process, meet some of my current subscribers and to really get out there and kind of meet the public that have been subscribing and supporting my channel, which again, I thank you very much for. If you're a member and a subscriber to my channel, I really do appreciate that.
Ooh. Oh, I have that engine at home.
And here's the locomotive I was least suspecting to run into at the train show, but as we can see, I did. This is a variation of the IHC 462 steam locomotive with DCC and sound that I did a review on, only this one having been modified by the end user to run on DCC. Unlike my own, which apparently, according to all the research I've been able to gather, was a factory-done DCC conversion, although somewhat poorly. One of the nice little details that the Capital Region Model Railroad Group successfully integrated into this layout, of which the layout is a model of the former D&H branch line that is currently being operated by the Adirondack Scenic Railroad, was the placement of this RSC-2. This rare and currently inoperative locomotive was moved out of its former location, which was a museum, after that particular location decided to end the lease agreement with the Historical Society that had been preserving this locomotive. It was then moved to its current location, which is again line side on the Adirondack Scenic Railroad.
This is nice. I knew it was big.
And here we have the other major N-scale layout at the show, in this case done by the Albany N-Track group. This particular layout is interesting as it didn't really use, from what I could tell, if at all, any Kato Unitracks, which is sort of the gold standard for portable layouts. This is all hand-laid with cork road bedding and the usual tactics, which does work very effectively, but also requires a lot more work and is normally not used for these sort of modular layouts of this gauge because of that, at least not anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like a junkyard, right? Yeah, Sullivan Scrap, Interstate Fuels, Sunrise Feed, New York Central.
Let's use a signal.
I'm surprised all the top here on iPhone haven't picked up anything else. feeling like I really want to restrict myself. That's a fantastic sounding engine. This thing is challenging over here. That was life size out there.
And track 720.
Let's go look at the trees.
And then there was this notably smaller in-scale layout, which, while again smaller than most other displays at the actual show, packed plenty of action showing what you can really do with this gauge if you're smart with the utilization of space.
They got lights in the front.
You gotta get the damn calculator out.
Make sure you cheat you.
I really want to show
That was very good.
Maybe the thing that's talking. Yeah. I don't even know if I can play these anymore. I think I got rid of my deep video player.
Yeah, I think you gotta get a car rolling out of the rail.
Okay. One jump? Oh yeah. Which one?
That one? This one.
We got a car that's upside down
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Fainted.
You don't have a VHS? You don't have one of those anymore? Yeah, get rid of that. You gotta get the TV combo. The VHS combo TV. I got like two of them some kind of way.
And last but certainly not least, there was the Lego layout, which is very unique, and again, another part of this hobby that seems to be growing as the Lego community seems to be slowly but surely merging into the train hobby to a certain extent. And this really does make a lot of sense if you think about it, as what people have been doing for years with Legos, and I did say people, not just kids, is basically what we've been doing with model trains, and I mean by us, as model railroaders, have been doing with trains for quite some time. This is again, and not just in terms of building the actual locomotives and rolling stock that run on the tracks and or putting the tracks together themselves into a layout, but building the structures that are next to the tracks themselves, as well as the turf that goes around the buildings and or scenery that is thus related to it, such as trees, shrubbery, etc. I must admit that I myself had always dreamed of owning one of these Lego train sets as a kid around 10 years old or so, but that was never to be.
Which is the crazy thing.
So I stop at this station when I'm coming around this way. I stop at Conway when I turn.
Huh?
Did bring a red shot.
They did? When?
He's watching something. They show.
Rotary has got him a couple times.
Yep, I guess so. Do we even see all the stuff out here or no? Which one? The the steamer?
Yeah.
The one, this guy over here?
That guy.
They have 4 trains running on the main line here. Wow.
See, that one's it lost its car. See, it's gonna ram the cars.
Uh-oh.
Photo game.
Oh no, he's
Oh,
trying.
no.
They put him in a siding.
That's cool.
Turned in the siding, yeah. Well, that's what I call a day out. Anyway, I've been on the go since last night, with the exception of a few naps I took during the day, so I'm going to hurry up and get through what I've actually hauled home from the train show. Train show was not the worst I've ever been to, not the greatest either, I have to say. It was a little bit downsized from what I remember since the events of 2020, but I guess that's to be expected. So let's start from the beginning here. Let's see what I have. Start with one of the first things I ran into was this. This came from a vendor. I did pay full price on this. Got myself a set of these covered hoppers. These are the latest thing from Kato. Yes, it was, and unfortunately, yes, that was the price I paid. Kind of steep, but the fact is I needed the covered hoppers for my layout. Got them. Going to enjoy running these. They handle curves very well. Even though I mainly have wider curves on my layout for the most part, I still find it's easier to deal with on these cars to back them into sidings, etc. And I'm going to do a lot of that. This is an RS11, which I found on the same table. I don't know which variant of this class of engine it is, and it's critical because the earlier variant of this locomotive, built from Atlas for their N-scale line, is convertible much like the later one, but is much more of a challenge. It requires all kinds of soldering and crazy wiring. Hello everyone, Alco Diesel Guy from the future here. Hindsight being 2020, as it turns out I got scammed pretty badly on this locomotive. Admittedly, the price is only $80, and for a D&H engine, that's always dirt cheap, but there was a good reason for it. It's hard to see in these images here, but in fact, this locomotive isn't what it seems. To start with, it possesses a lot of glue damage to it, as someone apparently tried to glue these railings back into place. In fact, one of the railings on one side of the engine is missing altogether, which is conveniently the side of the locomotive it's sitting against in the package, so buying this off the shelf one wouldn't notice. This is my own fault. I should have insisted upon being able to take the engine out. I didn't even ask. That was my own idiocy on that regard, and I'm angry at myself for it. That said, unfortunately, it just goes to show what happens when you're that exhausted. Not trying to excuse myself, but that's what happens. I did actually fix this locomotive that very night, and I'll be posting a video showing most of the steps I took to get it back on the rails, and or make it look something resembling presentable. But again, this was a bit of a goof on my end. Then, I also got these items from that table and another neighboring table. Not much, just a few track sections, set of bumpers, set of small section tracks, and these re-railers. Again, for my Kato, I'm basically focused on N-scale for the most part on this time because I needed parts pretty badly. I hadn't bought anything in N-scale in so long. Here's another set of bumpers. These are all from the same neighboring tables. Very glad I got these railers. I really needed them desperately. This is an actual whole railroad crossing setup. I almost bought something like this when I was in Florida. I completely forgot to get a hold of more of them. I think I may actually have one of these as well, but I need them so that'll work fine. I need to have these crossings for the whole section of my railroad that crosses the main line. There are quite a few railroad crossings required. This will let me put it anywhere I want, I guess, and expand my current railroad crossing if necessary. So that'll work out. And of course, these bumpers for the end of the tracks, and of course these mini extension tracks. I just needed more of those. That is the prices I paid are about there. This is what I showed before by mistake, but this is what I got it from. I got this a little bit later on. It's an Alco C628. 6-axle job. I would never have considered this for HO because they are such a pain to get around those turns, but I find N-scale is much more forgiving. The engine, I did not pay this much for, I'm happy to say. Gentleman initially wanted 8. Initially, he immediately dropped the price to around 100. I said, nah, a little bit less than that. And he had this other engine here also for sale, which he initially wanted 40 for, and after negotiating, I managed to get all of this together for just over $100, including this caboose, which unfortunately I see suffered a little minor damage during shipment home. The chimney broke off. I'm going to have to fix that. But, yeah. I managed to get all of this, these two engines and this for $110, which I thought was a very good deal. This locomotive, again, as its little sticker implies, does not work. That was not the price I paid. Again, it got included as the same price of around $100 for all of them. I'll be taking this apart. I actually have a decoder in stock for it. I had bought by mistake, but if it turns out that the decoder is the only thing wrong with this, I will be in very good shape, as I already have that decoder bought and paid for. All I have to do is drop it in, and I'll have a switcher. Even though I don't prefer switchers, I like to have road engines that can switch, or quote-unquote road switchers, because of how I run my layout, but it'd still be pretty cool to have. This caboose is a pretty rare item. This is made by Atlas, all the way back from 1993. It has the metal chassis underneath it. It has Microtrains wheels. Pretty cool little piece. The brake wheel, again, the chimney over here broke off. I'll have to glue that back on. That's something I'll probably do just now before I go to bed, just to let it set itself up and dry up. Where's the chimney? There's the chimney. Yeah, here's the chimney that broke off. That really is a shame. The gentleman did give me a bag to put this in, but I wasn't thinking when I got out of the car. I was so exhausted, and unfortunately it broke off on me. So anyway, yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and actually glue that back in place when I get a chance here, and hopefully fix this thing. It should luckily be pretty easy to do. Okay, and what else did I have here? So then I have this item here. Now this was one of the bigger takeaways of the whole time I was there. This I'm particularly happy of getting. I've been collecting the Amtrak stuff like crazy, especially since the P-42s are going to be retired by Amtrak soon. I've been sort of very aggressively trying to get a hold of these engines, especially since I've found out finally how to get, or figured out rather how to install a decoder without frying it on these engines. I don't know why that always happened. It is one of the easiest installs to do, and yet I never got it right for the longest time. This is a full-on P-42 Viewliner set. It's a 5-car set with a locomotive. Gentleman had this up for sale for a bit of a price. I managed to get it down a bit. This is the actual bookcase set. As you see, you slide this into your bookcase. What you usually have to do to get one of these days is you buy this sort of starter set that comes in a box. I think I have one here. Here's an example of what they look like. Here's one from a Viewliner set. Basically, you buy this sort of set, and then you buy this bookcase set, and you get the two of them put together. This was the whole bookcase set, though, put together by itself. In other words, I didn't have to buy the other set. They were both included in one package. Let's see what I got in here. What I got in here is actually quite impressive. I didn't pay the price it says up here. After a little negotiating, I got the price down to $130. This was actually one that had me biting my nails. In the end, my father and I had to make a trip to the ATM because we both didn't have the cash to pull it off. I thought that I didn't realize I was going to find something like this, but I did. Anyway, managed to pull it off, managed to get a hold of it. As you can see, it is what the original sort of Silver Star would have looked like. We have the old school heritage baggage car with two Viewliner 1 cars in the phase, I think this is 4 paint. And we have, of course, a diner and a single coach on the top here. And, of course, a P-42 locomotive number 16. I don't have anything like this, so I'm going to look forward to getting this in service. This is new old stock, obviously. It's never been run. This goes to show you what you can find at a train show. And anyway, yeah, the price, I did not pay the price there. I wound up getting it down to about $130 and nailed my way through that deal. I thought for sure I was going to lose it. The main problem was that my father and I were both out of cash. Anyway, we made a trip to an ATM, managed to pull it off and get it for that price. So I think that was an excellent deal, considering you would normally pay. This one, the price is probably not the most accurate example. This was bought way back in 2012. The price on this was $149. And if we take a look right over here, this is just for, if you look very carefully, just for the single Viewliner, the cafe. Actually, excuse me, the single Viewliner and 2 coaches plus the locomotive. Whereas here I got a 5-car set for less than that price, so you really can't go wrong. Admittedly, you can sometimes get these for a little bit less than that. I've seen them for $100. I actually saw one at the show for $138. I almost got it, but couldn't make up my mind and decided to avoid it for the time being. I probably should have taken a closer look at it, but I wasn't thinking that way and thought, I'll come back to it. And by the time I came back to the booth that had it, it was already gone. So unfortunately, I lost that one, but I gained this one, so it works out. And that is, I do believe, everything I got. The items I did get, I'm going to be very happy with. The other 2 items I did get were 2 basic scenery items. I ended up getting what it turns out to be, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, an O-scale. I think it was General Store I picked up, and 1 N-scale house. I thought I had 2 N-scale houses for some reason. Shows you how tired I was. Turns out I'd gotten one right. One was an N-scale, and one was an O-scale. So you know, easy come, easy go on that. The N scale house is already on my N scale layout, which you will be seeing eventually once I finally get around to making videos of it. I've been so busy getting these other railroad films out that I have not gotten around to filming that. That will be coming soon. The O scale, L scale building, I'm ashamed to admit I put on my HO layout and realized shortly after I placed it down that it was clearly not to that scale. Oh well, c'est la vie. Nothing much I can do at this point at that, but what are you going to do? It is a nice structure, though. It's die-cast metal. I guess that's why it was so well built. I managed to get both of those for a very reasonable price. The gentleman had one for 7, one for 8. I managed to get them both for about 12, so that worked out. So anyway, folks, that's going to do it for this whole video, and the whole video, I should say, because I'm assuming I'm going to edit this all together. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If not, give it a thumbs down. Please subscribe, as it will help me greatly, and please like, as that will help me greatly as well. And as always, keep the metal side down.